A reading from John. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I also will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself, it must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. If you remain in me, and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done to you. This is my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends.
Hi, thanks for tuning in. My name is Matt Stevens, and I'm recording this from the Church of the Ascension at RAF Benson. We see periodically the familiar slogan that life is not about the destination, but rather the journey and your experience of it. So rather than wishing away this strange new era of QR codes and masks, I wonder if instead we can weave it somehow into our collective narrative of hope. Viktor Frankl says that we can survive any nightmare that we can make meaning of. And while this year has undoubtedly caused for some hurt and worry or pain, there is hope. Hope that humanity can connect in new and exciting ways, that relationships can be formed and enhanced virtually, that there is encouragement, that though the patterns of our lives have been shaken, our journeys go on. One of the patterns of life that has been changed this year is remembrance. We won't be physically together at a war memorial, standing shoulder to shoulder observing silence this year. But that doesn't mean we can't stand together metaphorically to reflect on the sacrifices and great love that have gone before us. After World War I, just over a century ago, King George V issued a proclamation that upon the anniversary of the war, all locomotion should cease, that in perfect stillness, the thoughts of all should be concentrated on the reverent remembrance of the glorious dead. There was at that time a military chaplain by the name of Reverend Railton. Railton had been a frontline chaplain on the battlefields of France, and he recalled later that he would often, while walking the lines, stumble upon hastily marked graves, sometimes denoted with two simple sticks in the shape of a cross. When the war ended and Railton returned home, he did so to find a nation in mourning, with no outlet for their grief. And he was moved by this, and so the idea was born for the tomb of the unknown soldier. Under Railton's careful eye, a number of deceased servicemen in British uniform were carefully and reverently exhumed from the major battlegrounds of France, including Ypres and the Somme. They were taken to a chapel at St. Paul on November the 7th, 1920. There they were arrayed, and all shrouded in an identical Union flag. The officer in charge, Brigadier Wyatt, selected a single soldier from those before him entirely at random, with no idea if the man he had chosen was a private or a major, British or Commonwealth, a Tommy or a Tariq, the son of an earl or a labourer. Those unchosen were taken and with great care and dignity reburied, while the unknown soldier selected was sealed into a coffin made from British oak taken from Hampton Court, the King's own sword affixed on top, bearing a brass plaque with the inscription, "A British warrior of the Great War, for King and country." The body was taken from the chapel at St. Paul to Dover, crossing the Channel on the destroyer HMS Verdun, and then onwards to London. In London, 2 years to the day after the war had ended, on the 11th of November, was drawn in procession through London to the new memorial, the Cenotaph at Whitehall, to be met by the King. There followed a 2-minute silence, after which the body continued on the journey to Westminster through an honour guard of 100 holders of the Victoria Cross. The final resting place, a grave in the transept of Westminster Abbey, filled with 100 sandbags of soil taken from the various battlegrounds of France and sealed with a solid slab of Belgian black marble. No one was sure how the public would respond. Bear in mind that then, unlike now, an act of remembrance was an entirely new concept. Yet in the first week alone of November 1920, over 1 million members of the public visited to quietly pay homage and respect to the unknown soldier. Today, a century later, we reflect on the words which are inscribed on the tomb from the Gospel of St. John. Greater love hath no man than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Our culture is often uncomfortable with silence. It can be seen as vacant space, waiting to be filled with content. We try and cram every empty moment full. I read a poem this week by Thomas Keating called Out of a Stone. And in it he writes that the silence of the Creator is thunderous, drowning out everything else, hiding in endless creativity. The silence of the Creator is thunderous. Silence isn't vacant. Silence is where we meet the thunderous divine presence. And while we won't be able to meet and share a physical period of silence at Remembrance this year, I encourage you to take some time for silence wherever you are. If you haven't already, make it part of your daily routine on your journey. From RAF Benson to the benefice and beyond, we wish you every peace and every good. Amen.